Please be seated.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning again. A couple of things before we get started. I may have forgotten to tell you, and I probably did. We're going to stop about 4 o'clock today. That's the only thing of significance on the calendar today. And number 2, we're going to call a witness out of order right now. We're going to, for convenience purposes, we're going to call a witness other than Dr. Long, whose examination will continue later today. So go ahead with your next examination, Mr.
Thank you.
Chambliss.
Please raise your right hand.
Ted Wojt, T-E-D-E-S-Z-W-O-J-T. And Mr. Wojt, did you know Mark and Julie Jensen?
Yes.
How is it that you came to know Mark and Julie Jensen?
They were my next door neighbors.
Where did you live at the time that you were the neighbors of the Jensens?
It was a 9024 Lakeshore Drive, First Avenue at the time.
And when did you first move to 9024 First Avenue?
It was around 1992.
And when you moved into that residence, who were you living with at that time?
Yes.
Who were you living with at that time?
With my wife,
And what's your wife's name?
Margaret.
And do you and Margaret have any children?
Yes, we do.
How many children do you have, sir?
2.
And how old are they?
20 and 21.
20 and 21, sir?
Right now, at the moment.
Yes. And could you move a little bit? I'm having trouble hearing
Right.
you, and my head's all congested anyway, so I'm having a hard time hearing. Now, Mr. White, can you turn?
The microphones are not on here.
Oh, maybe I was talking.
There you go.
There we go.
Still not. There we go.
Yeah, the license on.
Let's just turn on here.
Thank you, Julie, for that. And what do you do for a living, Mr. White?
Well, I'm in the construction and designing of arts, usable arts for housings and the personal usage and everything.
Tell us what you mean by usable arts for housing.
Well, I design for like restaurants, special bars, jazz clubs, stages, furniture, desks, any type of piece that you can use for your personal use. I will work with the client and design some very unusual, creative piece of furniture or just artwork.
Okay. Can you describe some of the types of artwork that you've created in the past, say, 2 years or so?
Oh yeah, I just finished one of the project downtown Chicago, Pops for Champagne, and I designed Pops for Champagne. I designed for them their bars are stone, glass, stainless steel. Their custom tables, very unusual, because that's what the client asked me to design something for them that never been done before, they never seen before. So that's what I do. I create, I use my imagination, and I build it in my head, then it goes on the paper, and go to my shop, and then I do it.
And how long, well, as of December 3rd, 1998, how long have you been living at 9024 First Avenue?
I think so. It's got to be 12 years.
Now, if you can tell the jury, if you can remember, how was it that you first met Julie Jensen?
Well, actually, about 2 years before we built our house, we moved to our house, I bought the lot across the street from Julie Jensen.
And what year was it you bought the lot across the street from Julie Jensen, if you can remember?
What year was it? Or?
Yes, do you remember?
Probably 1990.
And so what was it about buying that lot across the street
I
from
bought the
Julie?
lot to build a house on it, because actually it had existing foundation. And since we started building, then across the street, that lot, there was, at the moment, new construction going on, which was Julie's and Mark's house. And then on a daily basis, us coming into the construction site and leaving the construction site, we saw Julie. And actually, one of the occasions, Julie actually came out to our construction site and introduced herself. She helped us a few times. She will check on us if we stayed there a little bit longer, like 9 or 10 o'clock. She was like asking, are you having a problem or some other stuff? You know, we were just working long time, long hours.
So just check on you and being a good neighbor and seeing how you're doing.
Yep. No reason, just woke up and, you know.
So did you come to view Julie Jensen as a person that was a friend of yours?
Yes. Yes, more than a neighbor, I would say a friend.
And after you built that house across the street, at some point you then apparently built a house next door to them.
Yes, there was, I think so during the construction of the house across the street, I noticed there was a sign next to Mark and Julie's house for sale. And I called the number, and actually there was Mark's telephone number. It was their lot, and we started talking, and they sold me the lot, and then I built a house there.
Now, is that the first time you ever spoken to Mark Jensen? Is when you?
No, I did spoke to him before.
So you'd also come to know Mark Jensen before you built your house there?
Yes.
And in the years that followed as you lived there, did you occasionally socialize with Mark and Julie Jensen?
Yes, we did. Yes,
Tell us some of the circumstances under which you'd socialize with them.
Well, the basic stuff was this. I liked the neighborhood. That's why we moved there. There was very like family-oriented neighborhood. They had the kids. We had the kids. So when you on the weekends or when you come home early or something, always there was somebody out there. You could talk to Mark, Julie, on a daily basis. They're very friendly people, very nice people.
Did your children play with their children?
Yes, we did. We had a couple times dinners together. We went, I think, so a few times to Shawnee's restaurant on Highway 50. And, you know, just nice people.
You enjoyed their company?
Yes, very.
Now, did there come a time in 1998 when Julie started to describe to you some problems that she was having in the household?
There was a few weeks. I think so. I was 6 weeks or 5 weeks before Julie died. I noticed the difference. Noticed in her behavior.
So what was the first time, if you can tell the jury, what was the first time that you noticed that there was a change in Julie's behavior?
Well, the biggest thing was I was leaving to work, I remember that morning, and I was, just getting ready, getting the stuff in my car, and I noticed that Julie was sitting in the front of the house on the bench, and she was like leaning down with her hands out on the railings, and she was crying. So, I just, because we've been friends, we talked a lot before, so I didn't hesitate. I just come up and I talked to her.
Now, this occurred approximately how long before she died?
I would say 5-6 weeks. I cannot tell you exactly, but that was about the time. It was fall already.
So when you were talking to her, did you approach her or did she come over by you?
I did approach her. I was very concerned. I did approach her because I don't think so. She didn't even see me.
And when you approached her, as you got closer to her, What did you see?
Well, when I approached her, I said she had her head down, the hands kind of spread out, and you can hear her cry. And then she pulled her head up. She had tears on her face, she was all red. And we started talking. I started asking her, what's going on, what's this? And she didn't want to say what was the problem. She didn't want to just, in the first thing. And after probably, I think, a minute or 2 minutes of discussion and asking, she started kind of waving her hands and saying they had another big argument this morning. She had it with it. The situation in the house has got very intense. They will have a daily arguments, few times a day. And one of the biggest things she said, contribution to those arguments is started when Mark got his new job. He kind of changed. And one of the things which she said at that time, at that moment, she said she thinks Mark has got another woman. And that's why this thing is going on like this. That's why she's getting so much pressure from here.
Did she describe to you, if you can recall, what kind of pressure Mark was putting on her?
Well, one of this pressure was go get a job. He told her to go get a job. This was one of the things. I think so. Douglas, the youngest son, put him in the daycare, which she really didn't want to do this, because understanding they had in the house, what she told me, that she was contributing to the house by babysitting, by taking care of the kids. She was, daily basis. I mean, she was really, the kids was the major thing for her.
Did you ever see Julie interacting with her children up until that point?
No.
Did you ever see what kind of a parent she was with her children?
Oh, she was a great parent. She was really you saw her every day with the kids, playing in the front, playing in the back, spending time in her garden. The kids will be there. The dog was there. It's a great picture.
If you were to describe Julie as a parent, how would you describe her? Was she a good parent or a bad parent? A great parent?
Very loving mother, very great parent.
So how long did this conversation that occurred between you and Julie last, this morning, 5 or 6 weeks before she died?
Yeah, it's probably less around 45 minutes, half hour to 45 minutes easy.
And was she tearful during this entire thing, or was she just giving you?
No, she was tearful in the very beginning. Then she got really upset about it. That's why I said she was waving her hands. She didn't know what he wanted from her, because every time was always something. He will come up, and then by the time he gets from work, there were another argument and another argument. And it was a long time ago. I cannot remember everything that she told me, but one of the things, that's why she suspect that he had someone, because he will go to O'Hare Airport for a business meeting, and he will stay there overnight for 2 days or 3 days period.
And how long is O'Hara from your residence?
Well, depends how you drive, but I would say 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. I remember I had a discussion with Mark about it too. I said, "You're going there and you're staying? I'm driving every day to Chicago and I'm coming back." And he said, "Well, that was it."
What did you say?
No.
Okay. So after that conversation that you'd had with Julie that morning, that lasted a half hour, 45 minutes, when was the next time that you saw or spoke with Julie Jensen?
I would say probably the same, afternoon, around 3 or 4 o'clock the same day.
You saw her again?
Yes.
And did you have occasion to talk with her at that time?
Yeah, we did. We did. It just, like I said, we had talks on a daily basis. Sometimes we didn't talk, even before the 6 weeks. There was nothing new that we talk in the front of the house or something, but just discuss different things.
It was common for you to talk with Julie Jensen on an almost daily basis?
Yes.
Now, in the weeks before you had this first conversation with her, this one you just described,
Yes.
had you noticed any change in Julie's behavior or any change in the way she appeared?
No. She was, she did her things, which she always used to do. She had her stuff to do every day. I will meet her on the back when she cut the grass, or she worked on by the swimming pool or her garden. It was, she discussed about this, she discussed about different stuff. But it was, what they're gonna do, or on the weekends. Because usually Mark was still sleeping and Julie and the kids were up in the front playing 10, 11 o'clock in the morning.
So when you talked with her that afternoon, you said you'd had another conversation with her that afternoon.
Yeah.
Did Julie appear to be in better spirits or about the same when you talked to her?
Oh, she was down. That's why I noticed, that 6 weeks or 5 weeks, her behavior, she wasn't herself. You could feel she was under a lot of pressure.
She seemed to be sad, more sad than you've
Yes,
seen in the past?
she was sad. She will, like I said, she will look for a chance, opportunity to talk to me, just to get her, just to talk to someone about her problems.
And what would she say to you when she talked to you about those problems? Did she amplify on the problems she described before?
We had an audition this time.
Why don't you put a time frame on the...
Well, let's talk about the conversation you had with her that afternoon. You said you'd spoken with her in the morning and she
Yeah.
was crying. Tell us what you can remember about the conversation that you had with her that afternoon.
Well, I don't remember that much, but mostly she repeated the stuff we were talking about that morning. That she was suspicious that Mark was seeing somebody for sure.
No. And in the weeks that followed, did Julie continue to confide in you?
Yes.
Was there any change in the things that she was telling you?
Well, the change what she was telling me, she's started noticing changes in the house. One of the biggest thing was, there was still they had their daily argument, but she was start suspecting Mark. One of the things was the computer stuff, what he was doing on the computer, his research.
What did she tell you about what she suspected about Mark and the computer?
Well, I remember that one of the conversation was that I think so Mark went to work in the morning, and then she noticed on his desk by the computer there was little notes, like those little stick down 2x2 notes with the different sides, just like 3 of them sticking in each other. And there was sides when Mark was going to look for different poisoning sites about the poison.
So these were written on Post-it notes?
Yes. And they were just stick on the top of that's how she described it to me.
As you're sitting here today, do you remember what the poisons were that she mentioned?
No, I do not remember. I do not remember.
And can you remember in relation to this conversation when she was describing these poisons, how much time had passed between the point where you'd first seen her crying like that in the front, that conversation as you described, and the point where she had this conversation with you about the poison sites?
Oh, it could be a week, maybe less. She really got very suspicious. It's like she will do like her daily thing just to confront me, what she find out new, what he was doing on a daily basis. And she will just come out the same afternoon or next morning. I remember sometimes I will go the same time I will leave to Chicago in the morning at 9:15, 9:30, and she will wait for me just to tell me what happened last night, or she found it. Like she will tell me that The last night she was sitting, she was vacuuming the house, and as she was vacuuming through the hallways and everything, she noticed that Mark was on the computer and doing the research. He was looking on the screen about the poisoning and everything. And at the point, Mark got really suspicious because she was staring at the screen. He took his foot and he just slammed the door, closed the door in front of her face. Yeah. And then there was
Now, when she described that conversation, or when she was describing that incident, do you remember when that incident occurred in relation to the other conversations you've described and in relation to her death?
The time, the point, not really, but I would say there was probably in a week or so, in a week after the first conversation, I saw her in the front.
So maybe, 3 or 4 weeks before she died?
Objection leading. And not consistent.
Well, I think, pardon me?
And not consistent with prior testimony.
Well, there's some confusion. The objection is sustained.
Okay, well, how much, if you remember when she was talking to you about how Mark closed the door with his foot, when she'd seen that on the computer, if you remember, how much time elapsed between that conversation and the point where you discovered that Julie had died?
I would say around 4 weeks. 4 weeks. And there was another occasion that she was very confused and scared because there was some times that Mark left to work and he left his computer on. And on the screen of the computer, there was the website or about the poisoning and everything. So then she will come out to me and talk to me about it, and she's like, I don't know what he's trying to do to me, if he's like trying to scare me, he's playing with my mind, or he just forgot to turn it off. He will just leave it on all day long. For her to see it, or she couldn't figure out what was going on.
Well, did she discuss with you what her various suspicions were?
Yes.
What were the various suspicions that she had?
Well, her various suspicions was that he's trying to poison her, or he's trying to drive her nuts to take away the kiss from her, because that's what one of the arguments they had, that he was scaring her that she was an unfit mother. He will take the kids away from her.
And was that, how did Julie feel about the prospect of Mark taking the children away?
She was furious. She was really upset about it. And then one of the things was that Mark was pushing her. He said, pushing her to go get a job, go see a doctor, that put Douglas in the school. There was like daily talks between me and her about it. She was telling me those things on a daily basis because that's the things they were arguing.
She said that Mark was pushing her to go see a doctor?
Yes.
How many times did she tell you about that, if you can?
I would say it's got to be at least 5, 10, 15 times, a lot of times. Yeah.
How would you respond when she would voice these suspicions that either Mark was trying to poison her or Mark was trying to drive her crazy? Did you offer an opinion on what he was trying to do, or did you?
Yeah, we had a discussion. I told her to contact the police, and she actually, I think she did at the time, did contact the police. I think so. It was Mr. Cosman or somebody, and but. She wasn't sure what really is going on. She didn't want to come out on the top like she's losing her mind or she's really going to get killed and she's going to get poisoned.
She just didn't know which it was.
She didn't know which one is it. She was thinking that, well, what happened if he's just playing with me just to take the kids away? And at the same time, she was fear about her life, if this is true, what he's doing. Because of, like, he will leave that screen on or some other things. Yeah.
In the weeks as these discussions continued in the weeks that got closer and closer to the day of her death. Did any of these, did she have additional things that she offered you or not?
Well, what the daily, like I said, daily discussion, there was, I remember one morning, she came up to me and she was really upset. I think so Mark was out of town. And she said, you know what happened? We had an argument like 3 or 4 in the morning. He will call me 3 in the morning. And then finally, I realized that somebody's calling, so I picked up the phone, and he started arguing with me. Where you been? What you been doing? Why you didn't answer the phone? You know, and he's like, he suspect me of something, or you know, and he will check on her this way.
So that was a time when he was out of town?
Out of town. This was about, I would say, 2.5, 3 weeks before her death. That's when the pressure, you can start seeing the pressure and the worry on her face.
Did she ever describe to you any circumstances under which Mark would try to get her to eat or drink anything?
Yes, I think so. There was it's about 2 weeks before her death. She was really, really worried to eat anything in the house or drink in the house. One of the things was that Mark came home from work and he was offering her drink. I don't know what was it, but he was after her with the drink, and she wouldn't take it. And it was very suspicious to her. That's what she told me, that I never got anything from Mark. Every time Mark walks into the door, I have to serve him. I gotta give him, you know, it was a daily basis routine. Mark walks in, I handle him his drink, but it never was opposite. So that's why she, with this other stuff, which she was finding out about the poison sides, and him offering her that drink was very, very difficult. Very, you know. And I said 2 weeks before her death, she had some problems because she was telling me she was throwing up. She was really upset and shaking and everything.
So she told you at some point before she died,
Yeah.
that she had been ill, that she'd been vomiting.
Yes, yes.
And you have an estimate as to how much time that was
I would say
before she
about
died?
2 weeks, because I remember I told her to maybe just go to a local store down the street, pick up a sandwich or some other stuff, you know.
You
So-
suggested that she go somewhere else to
Yeah.
get something to eat.
Yes.
And do you know whether she took you up on that advice?
I really don't know. I think so. One of the times she did. I think so. There was one of the times she said she just went and got a peanut jelly sandwich or something. Yeah.
How many times, if you can recall, did Julie tell you that Mark was trying to pressure her to go to see a doctor?
Asked and answered.
That means you can answer the question,
Okay.
sir. Do you remember how many times? Was that more than once, or how many
Oh
times?
yes, there was more than once. There's more than once. That's one of the discussion, the arguments they had on a daily basis. They will argue. That's what she will tell me. There was a lot of pressure from Mark to go see a doctor, put the Douglas in the daycare, and go get a job. And I think so she was talking about even looking in a school or some other place, putting application, you know, and she really didn't want to do it. She wanted to stay with the kids. That's what she wanted to do.
Did she ever indicate to you what Mark was telling her as to why he wanted her to go see a doctor?
No. She never, he was just pressing her to go to the doctor.
Did she ever indicate to you why she was reluctant to go see a doctor?
No.
Well, can you tell us if there were any additional conversations you had with Julie Jensen in the weeks or two before she died?
Well, I said there was a lot of conversation, but I think it was like a one about week or it's got to be 2 weeks. It was like that 2 weeks before she died. And I mean, she was really scared. She I think it was in the morning, on Saturday or Sunday morning. She got up and she told me what happened last night.
What did she tell you?
That Mark, that night, he was like chasing her with a glass of wine. He brought her a glass of wine and asked her to drink it. And at the same time that night, in her bedroom, one of the drawers, a nightstand, one on the side of the bed, I don't remember which side, she said was like cracked open, like 3 inches or 4 inches open, so she could see what was inside. There was a couple of syringes laying there in the nightstand, and she was really, really upset about it. And then Mark was following her with this wine. Whatever she made a move, she didn't want it, then he will like come to the bedroom, put it next to her, or drink it, have it this. And then he brought the bottle of wine. And she said she didn't want to drink it. I think that this was like going on to 3 in the morning. They had a huge fight, and she wouldn't drink it because she was afraid that he put something in the wine, and then he's going to inject her with something else. That's why those syringes were there in the.
Was there ever a time before Julie died where she gave you something to hold?
There was, I think, so that what happened now, that was, I think, so on Saturday morning or something. And she kind of knew she's not going to, she wasn't even sure she's going to make it over the weekend.
What did she say to you?
Well, she was scared that she's going to die. He's going to poison her. Somehow something happened. She's not going to make it to Monday.
And what did she say? What did she do then?
Well, I think so it was like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. I don't remember. It was afternoon. We had one of those talks in the front of the house, kind of the side of the house by their bedroom. They got little bushes there, and we were talking. There was a little fence, and I had a coat, and she was just standing crying. I mean, she was really upset, shaking, and she pulled something, and she had an envelope in her hands, and she put it in my pocket, my coat. And she said, if anything happened, I should give this to the police.
And what did you say to her?
Well, that I will do it, but, I didn't believe that something's going to happen. I knew there was something going on, but, you cannot imagine somebody's going to die.
Did you ever offer Julie any type of assistance?
Yes, I did offer her assistance. I think so. One of her first of assistance, I think so, was that I was talking to her on a daily basis, and she could, she could spill her guts. She could relax a little bit. She had someone to talk. The stuff that were bothering her, eating inside, all night or all day, she could tell someone, about it. And I think that was really big thing for her, because what I noticed is like, she will wait. She will wait for me sometimes I had a little shop in the back of my house, and she will wait there, see if I'm gonna come out or I'm gonna do anything, so she could just approach me, just talk to someone, what's going on.
Did you ever offer to allow her to use any of your other properties to stay
Yes,
at?
I did. I think there was like a week before her death, stuff really got intense. I mean,
Sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said, sir.
this stuff that's very intense, very heavy. And that was on the both sides behave, Marks and her, because I think so. I wouldn't even Mark wouldn't talk to me or I wouldn't talk to him at least 2-3 weeks before her death. He was like even ignoring when he passed me or something. He wouldn't even say hi, just walk. He didn't hear, he didn't see anything. So it's like both sides knew what was going on, but nobody was talking to each other. It was like we knew what was going on in their family, and he kind of was figuring out that we know about it.
Calls for speculation.
Ask a question.
When you offered to allow Julie to stay at one of your property, which property was it?
It was property in Lily Lake. I had we just purchased property. It was a summer house cottage. I offered Julie, I think so, a few $1,000s at that time. I said, I give you the money if you feel so bad, because she was really scared. She was scared. She saw expression on her face. She didn't know where to go, where to turn.
Now,
And
Mr. Wojt, when you offered her, so you offered her a couple $1,000s, and you said she could stay at your lake home. And when did this conversation occur in relation to her death?
I think so. It's got to be a week before her death.
And when you made that offer to Julie, how did she reply to that?
Well, how she replied? She still wasn't sure all the way if whatever is happening is really the truth, or Mark is just playing with her mentally, just to trying to take away the kids. I mean, she wasn't sure all the way. She was still hoping that it's just the mind playing. That he's just, she had it, but she was afraid about her life. There's no question.
What was the last conversation that you can recall ever having with Julie Jensen?
I think it was Sunday. I think it was Sunday before Julie died. It was in the morning. Me and my wife, we were in the front. We spent a lot of time in the front of the house with the kids playing. And we noticed Julie and Mark was with their kids. And we look at them. They were getting ready to go for a walk. I can picture the whole event, how they were standing. Mark, they were very close to each other, like nothing happened. Everything was fine. Mark had his hand around her, and they went for a walk. I think so Douglas was with them. They went for a walk. And I remember my wife said, and she says, well, you see, everything is fine, everything turning okay. It's just,
You and your wife had talked about what was going on in the Jensen household?
Yes, I think so. The first time when it happened, the first thing in the 6 weeks or 5 weeks when I talked to Julie, and at the same time I went to tell my wife what was going on. My wife advised me, and she was kind of upset.
There's no factual assertion so far, Your Honor.
Well, as of this point, but why don't you ask another question?
Well, because I wanted to hear what Margaret, I happen to know what she said, and it's not a factual assertion, and it's not being offered for the truth of the matter.
Ask another question to get him talking again.
Okay. So tell us, let's get back to the Sunday morning, the last time you saw Julie, spoke to Julie alive, the last time you saw her alive, the last time you spoke to her.
That was actually not the last time. I think I still talked to her on Monday very briefly, but that Sunday we had I would say 45 minutes to an hour conversation.
So you and your wife had seen Julie and Mark and the children together?
Yes.
And what was your impression when you saw them together?
It was like you wipe out this 6 weeks part of their life, like everything was normal, like it was before we know them. They were just going for daily walk as a whole family. Mark was just, normal.
So what were your hopes at that point when you saw them?
Everything is fine. Everything got kind of worked out between them. Maybe this was really, the whole thing was her just worry what's going on.
So at that point, you weren't convinced that Mark had been trying to kill her. You were thinking maybe it had just been all in Julie's head.
Objection to relevance about his beliefs.
I didn't hear the last thing you said, sir.
Objection to relevance of his beliefs about what
It
he
was
thinks.
sustained.
Well, what happened then later that, after you'd seen them go off on this walk?
Well, they went for their walk, and I don't know, maybe half hour later or something, they came back. Mark was playing with the kids in the driveway. They were shooting hoops, and oh yeah, they went. Their dog was with them too. They had a yellow dog, and Julie turned kind of around. I would say she was 50 feet from Mark, at least 50 feet. And I asked her a question, so everything is fine, everything is okay. And she just started crying. She was just start crying and shaking and everything. And at the same time, she will play a game. I mean, did nothing happen. She will throw a fake toy, a bone, I remember, to the dog, so he will fetch and bring it back and forth. And so Mark wouldn't notice what was really going on. And I remember I used to just say, Julie, stop, he's gonna know this. Don't do this. He's looking this way. And, you know, and she was just on, and she says, nothing. No, I asked her, so everything's fine? She said, no, it's opposite. We're still having, you know, the same problems, even more. Not the same stuff, nothing changed.
Did you make any offers of assistance at that time?
Oh, I told her, you know, get the hell out of the house, leave.
And what did she say?
No, she wouldn't leave because of the kids. She wouldn't leave the kids, there's no way.
You talked earlier about an envelope that Julie had slipped in your jacket pocket.
Yes.
What did you do with that?
Well, she gave me that envelope. I look at, when I walk into the house, right from the back door, I went through the garage. I look at, it had my name on it. The envelope was sealed, but still had my name on it. And I showed my wife, and we got this old-fashioned French kind of armoire cabinet. And we put it inside the cabinet. We locked the door. It was sitting there.
You said you spoke to Julie on Monday?
Yes, I think so. I did talk to her on Monday. I'm sure I did talk to her.
Do you remember anything about that conversation?
No, it was just a brief, very short conversation. I know she was telling me that day or next day, I think so, she was going to the doctor. She finally, she agreed to go to the doctor.
You don't remember anything beyond that, though?
Oh no, there was things that one of the things was that Douglas was going to daycare or babysitter. I think so, daycare. She still didn't like it, but she did it anyway. And then she was looking for a job. Yeah.
Can you tell me what you remember about December 3rd?
December 3rd. I know on December 2nd, Julie talked to my wife. That I know. On December 3rd, I remember in the morning, I think so, met Mark in the front of the house, was going on the side door to the front main door to the house. He didn't even look at me. He was, for me, I would say, 40 feet. He didn't, he was very cold, very just, that's it. I don't know you. I don't want anything to do with you. You don't even exist. You're not there. That's the way I felt it. And then I went to Chicago. I think so. We talked to my wife on the phone a couple of times a day. And I think so, on the way back home, it's got to be 1:30 or 2 o'clock. I seen Mark driving our neighborhood by the stop sign. He was sitting in his SUV. I think so at the time he had a black SUV, Yukon or something. He had a white shirt on it. He was very spread inside the car. He was very relaxed. His hand was,
I didn't hear the last.
he was spread in the car. He was very relaxed, sitting, like laying in the back. His hand was like this on the under seat. He had his white shirt. He didn't even see me. He didn't wave. And we just missed past each other. He just turned left, and he just went someplace else. And then I think so, and I came home, I talked to my wife, and we really had a discussion, because one of the things was that it was suspicious to me that Mark stayed home, because as long as I know Mark and Julie, and that's one of the things that Julie would say, Mark was very cold about stuff. He will never miss a day off from work. Even if she was sick or she had some problems, or her dad died or something, he wouldn't take a day off to go to the funeral or wake or something with her. It just, you deal with it. And one of the things I really remember to today, that it was the middle of the day, and their lights, outdoor lights, on the side of the house, in the front of the house, they were on. And I was really telling my wife, there's something wrong. It's like a signal or something. Why don't you call her, find out what's going on? She said, no, we just had a discussion. And then I saw again, I don't know, it's got to be after 2 or 3 o'clock, pulling out of his driveway again and turning south on the Lakeshore Drive, going with his SUV. And next thing, I remember we had this more discussion in the house, and I told my wife, you see, you're going to be surprised.
I object to the hearsay.
It strikes me as irrelevant.
What's the next thing you remember seeing or hearing on December 3rd?
On the December 3rd, okay, I went to pick up my daughter from school, and when we pull in our neighborhood, the stop sign, we just noticed from far away, there's the flashes of lights, emergency vehicle, police, people standing on across the street, people standing in the front of the street. There was quite a bit. It was, kind of darkish. Quite a bit of people out there. And I went home, and then I went out sick. And I kind of knew what to happen. And I was standing with Jim Ashley, my neighbor across the street, and one of the officer at that time came out, and he started asking a question, are we the neighbors, this or that? And I asked him, is she dead? He didn't want to answer to me, and then Jim looked at me finally. He said, is she dead? Is she dead? And finally he admitted, yes, she's dead. And he started asking me my name. I just walked away. I couldn't take it anymore. Just went home.
Do you remember making any observations concerning any activities in that house the next day, around that house the next day?
One of the things really struck me that I think so was the next day. I don't remember what time it was. It was afternoon or evening. I just don't remember. I know we was very suspicious what was going on, because I think so we did, me and my wife, because Julie asked us even not to tell like neighbors across the street what was going on in their personal life, that they had a problem, just to, so actually me and my wife was mostly involved with her problems, Mark's problems. We knew about it. And we were just watching the house from, because there was a police there, and Mark's father. And Mark came out of the house. I think so the police was leaving the house, giving him free and clear house if he could move back to the house. And Mark was walking down the driveway, and his father was approaching him, and they give each other high five. It was, to us, was like, it's like, you happy? what are you celebrating?
Did you notice any different vehicles coming and going from the Jensen house in the weeks following Julie's death?
There was a lot of cars. I would say I seen different cars. One of the cars, I think there was a babysitter. She was about 17, 18 years old, young. She had a red hairdo, and she was driving a light blue car. I saw her in the beginning. I don't know how soon was that, but I seen her a lot there. Then another car was actually pulling into the garage. That's when we noticed Julie cars were sitting like on the outside. They had a little side driveway on the side of the garage. Her little Toyota was sitting there. And there was I think so, midnight blue Honda Accord or something.
It was being put in the garage?
Yeah, it was just like somebody had the garage opener because the door went up, the car went inside, and I didn't know who was in, who was,
And this was a car that was being parked in the space where Julie's car had been parked?
Yes, I think so.
And how much time elapsed between the point where Julie died and the point where you saw this car being parked in the space where Julie's car was usually parked?
It's got to be in a week to 2 weeks. It's got to be in it was too long, too far. I cannot remember. But that's what I noticed. And the one of the point even, we kind of, because we knew he had somebody, we talked about it, and he came up to me, he said, that was the babysitter. And we kind of laughed about it because I didn't see any babysitter. We discussed to stay overnight. So. And leave in the morning.
This person you described or referred to as Mark Jensen, do you see him anywhere in this courtroom today?
Mark Jensen?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you point to him and describe what he's wearing?
He's got.
Thank you. When Julie described to you these notes or notes that she'd found in the defendant's den, did you give her any advice as to what she should do about those notes?
I object to the characterization of defendant's den.
I'll throw the question here. Did Julie ever tell you where she found these notes that you made reference to?
Yeah, she found on his desk.
And did you ever give any advice as to what she should do about those notes?
One of the things was that she should take the pictures of those things, the screen, the notes, and give it to the police.
And to your knowledge, did she do that?
Yes, she did, because when she actually...
Calls for speculation, no foundation.
Rephrase your question.
Well, how do you know that she took those photographs?
Because she told me.
What did she tell you?
I took the pictures of the photographs, and I tried to contact the police to give it to them.
And what did she tell you what happened when she tried to call the police?
She said that she called the police. I remember very clearly. She said, I called the police, and they wouldn't want to talk to me because I did had assign policeman, Officer Kosman, to me. And at the time, he wasn't present. He went for a, that's what she said. He went for a, they told her that he went for a fishing trip. He's going to be back on Monday. And to them, they didn't want to talk to her or till he come back.
Did she tell you what, or did you suggest her what she should do with the photographs then?
I really didn't.
Do you know what she ever did with the film that she had?
She gave it to my wife.
Did you ever see or know of Julie discussing these photographs with the officer?
Yes, I did.
Tell us what you know about that, what you know personally, what you saw.
Personally, well, I was from the back of my little art studio going to the front of the house. We had a little side driveway between, it's a walkway between our house and their house. When I noticed that there was a police car parked in the front of their house, and she was talking to the policeman.
Did you know who the policeman was? Have you ever seen him before?
Yes.
Who was it?
Mr. Kosman.
It was Officer Cosman. Okay.
Yes.
What did you see then?
She talked to him, and he was kind of upset. You can see because they had a kind of loud talk or aggravation or something. It wasn't long, and at the same time they were finishing their talk, and she was leaving the car and walking towards me, and she was really upset, and she makes a mark like this. He thinks I'm crazy because he what do you want me to see on this picture? What do you want me to do this? Because I think there was a reflection of the flash. He couldn't see, he couldn't tell anything was on those pictures. And so she was really upset about it.
And Your Honor, just to complete the record, I request the record show that when the witness was saying she was doing like this, he was taking his right hand and moving his index finger in a circular fashion around his ear, as though the common usage is that he thinks that she's crazy.
Any dispute to that characterization?
No.
All right.
Did Julie, in the years preceding her death, ever talk to you about any harassing activity that she was experiencing at her house?
Well, she wouldn't talk to directly about it, but there was, I would say, a couple accidents that happened at the house. That's what we noticed. And after we talked to Julie, and I think so on one occasion I did talk to Mark, and one occasion I talked to one of the officers that was present on my yard in the middle of the night that happened. Yeah.
Okay, and so based upon your conversations with Julie and Mark and this officer, did you have an impression as to what the nature was of these complaints?
Yeah.
I object to his impressions. Maybe you can say what was
Okay.
said.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well, what did you learn about this activity?
One of the occasions,
And from whom?
It's not being offered so much for the...
Rephrase it.
Okay. What did Julie tell you about this activity?
actually I did approach to her and said, well, what happened when the police was in your house?
And what did she say?
And she said, well, we went shopping. By the time we came back, it was like middle of the day. I think it was weekend. And that when they come back, there was a bunch of furniture knocked all over the house, broken things. Like somebody entered the house, and that was it.
And did she ask you if you'd seen anybody around the house?
No, she did not.
Okay. Had you seen anybody around the house?
Yes, I did.
Who?
I think so.
I'm going to object to the relevance of the testimony. Well,
Who did you see?
I saw Mark Jensen father cars in the front of the house. After they went shopping, his car showed up in the front of the driveway. The engine was running. He went to the house. 2 minutes. Then he will leave the house, and you can hear this one of, because they had like a kind of gravel, I remember, on the half of the driveway. The wheel was spinning, and he was really like taking off out of the house.
And then how much time elapsed between the point where you'd seen him leave the house in that fashion and the point where the Jensens came home?
And the Jensen came maybe an hour or so later, and then the police show up. And one of the nights, me and my wife was sitting home watching a movie. We had kind of nice room on the back of the house, sunroom. We was watching the movie, and then it was 11 o'clock or so. We see somebody walking all over our yard. Even with the fence, we had a fence going between two properties, but I think so one section we didn't do it in the back because of the kids still passing, seeing each other. And I came out, I said, what's going on? And there was a policeman there. And that's what he told me, that they reported that somebody was in the backyard throwing things into the swimming pool.
And you hadn't observed anything?
No, it was quiet. We were sitting, we didn't hear, we didn't notice nothing. There were some noises or something, and then I talked to Mark next day. And Mark told me that somebody took one of the kids' tricycle or bicycle and threw it into a swimming pool. And that was it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wojt. I don't have any further questions.
We'll take a break at this point. Let me ask that you return at 1:30. Please don't talk about the case.
Please all rise.
And I started looking at legal materials with respect to the pending issue about Dr. Long, but I decided just to get...
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yeah.
So, just, you have to be back, say, 1:05, 1:10, something like that. And don't discuss your testimony with your wife,
I just decided that I wanted to get a little more factual history regarding the Stallings case, and I'm advising you now that I consulted an extrajudicial source, which was Google, and I entered the terms Patricia Stallings and Christopher Long, and I have to tell you, Mr. Albee, I get a very different read from the site that I went to, which is something called justicedenied.org, and I understand that not everything you read on the internet is accurate, so I'm not suggesting to you that you've misrepresented anything to the court, but there's a very different account published here, and they cite as a source TLC Discovery Channel's Innocence Files, and again, I don't want to get into an extended discussion. Okay. And you know that it actually uses the term miraculous in referring to Dr. Long's cooperation with the district attorney in the search for innocence with respect to Ms. Stallings. The actual initial claim of a finding of ethylene glycol poisoning was made at a Cardinal Glennon Hospital, to which Dr. Long was in no way connected, that the child was placed under foster care as a result of that finding, that while the child was on foster care, there was another episode where there was ethylene glycol allegedly found in the child's blood, and the child perished as a result. Or as was thought to be a result, and it goes on. Well, you're familiar with the article. You know that there apparently, I don't know to what extent Dr. Long may have been tabbed as having engaged in anything deceitful or lacking in professional standards based just upon this article. So, again, I'm not suggesting you have misrepresented the case.
I certainly haven't.
And I haven't claimed that you have, but I'm telling you that I'm reading a very different account of it on this site.
I read nothing in that article that absolves him of any responsibility. If the Cardinal Glennon people were on the stand, I'd take them to task too. I've personally spoken with 2 toxicologists that worked in the civil case in that case and I am aware of their opinions about
Were there
performance.
toxicologists who were defending Dr. Long?
I don't understand the court's question.
Well, you say you talked to 2 toxicologists who worked on that case against Dr. Long. Were there other toxicologists who were hired by the defense for Dr. Long? And did you talk to them?
Judge, I don't even know if the toxicologist I talked to worked against Dr. Long as opposed to working
Did you
for
talk to
some-
all of the toxicologists
Of course.
in the case?
No.
All right.
But Judge, I'm not, as the court pointed out, I'm not here to retry the Stallings case. I am not going to present every toxicologist involved. I'm not going to interview every toxicologist involved. I've done what I could. What I see in this case, and what I see there, is the second child, that was discovered before Patricia Stallings went to trial. And that would raise some concerns. And they still went to trial, and we still have Dr.
I don't, that's exactly what the rule is designed to prevent. What exactly you say we're not going to do. Retry the Stallings case. I understand it may be that you're on target with what you claim in this case. But I read here from what you do not, you haven't denounced as a disreputable source. I read an account which doesn't put any, well, I don't know. It says, just a minute. It refers in here, and again, I don't want to rely on a website for accurate information, but there are, as I say, the actual report, according to this website, was that the ethylene glycol found was actually detected, and it was because the hospital was administering ethanol to dilute, I'm going to say dilute, there's been testimony about it, dilute the effect of the ethylene glycol. And so, and that there was crystallization present. I don't know whether Doctor was well within the standard. And when you say the civil case was settled, for all I know, Dr. Long's insurer chipped in $2,500. I don't know, so I'm not going to retry that case, period.
So there's going to be no questions concerning the Patricia Stallings case?
I'm going to ask, in fairness to Mr. Albee, and again, I'm not making any misrepresentation or any suggestion that you've misrepresented anything.
And I take even issue with the clarification that I may have, or that a TLC article says anything about that. I have information, I'm in good faith, he got it wrong in a homicide case involving ethylene glycol. That is something this defendant ought to be able to put it in.
I don't know if he got it wrong, and I don't know, and I'm not going to try the Stallings case over again in order to find out. And that's exactly what the rule says. It's exactly what the rule is designed to do. And the point is, because I do want him to have a fair chance to be heard, when we come back at 1:15, we'll continue this discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor.